away on one of his frequent business trips. One of my oldest fantasies came to mind, and I got a little horny smile on my lips, which revealed that I was thinking about something. So Paul insisted that I tell him, in details, what it was. I made him promise solemnly that he wouldn't laugh and that we wouldn't make a single reference to it after I told him. He promised, and then I told him what I think is my oldest masturbation fantasy. It's a bit naughty, because it originates from a large picture that was hanging in my grandmother's guest bedroom, which in itself makes it a rather taboo-like place to have that sort of fantasy for a young girl. The picture was a black and white charcoal drawing, or maybe an etching, and quite large. It depicted a forest floor, and in the centre was a nymph who had obviously just woken up from a pleasant sleep. Behind her was a faun playing a pan lute, leering with lust at the nymph, and I seem to recall that a few others can be seen among the trees. It's obvious that they have all been waiting for the nymph to wake up and for the game to begin. In my fantasy, I'm the nymph, of course, and it varies a bit if I only have sex with one of them, or if I run away to tease them and end up having sex with more of them at the same time. I can still remember how I was staring bashfully at the ceiling when I had told the story to my husband. It was not as if it was some big secret. It was just the first time I had ever told it to anyone. Hearing it in my own voice made it feel terribly childish and silly. Then Paul said, "I think I must be the luckiest man in the world." He sat up and then bent down over me. "That is by far the loveliest fantasy I have ever heard. You are so amazing in every possible way." And like that, it just became an amusing little story I had shared with him. Or so I thought. 2 months ago, we celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. And as far back as 6 months prior, Paul started talking about how I should keep my schedule clear during our anniversary weekend. He didn't want to reveal anything about what he had in mind, just that I had to be ready at 7 p.m. on that Friday night. The anticipation was quite difficult to bear. We had been on some lovely hikes together, and I could easily imagine that that was the extent of what he had planned. Or perhaps a sailing trip on his boat. But dressing for the two things would be very different from a trip to a fancy restaurant or a trip to the theatre. I decided on a cute and sensible look. I packed my black knee-high suede boots and a red dress I knew Paul adored me in. It was comfortable enough that it would be all right for sailing and even for light hiking. Paul came to pick me up at 7 p.m. on the dot. We went to a charming little Italian restaurant. I love Italian food. We ate and drank and chatted for most of the evening. I glanced once or twice down on the floor next to his chair, but there was no present there for me. I thought perhaps he had bought me a piece of jewellery, but he didn't take anything out. Nothing at all. I could still clearly tell that he was oddly tense about something. When we reached the dessert, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to ask, "What are your plans?" I said with a quizzical brow. Paul just laughed and said that his surprise would be starting soon, and that perhaps it would be a good idea for me to use the ladies' room before we leave. It was 10:30 p.m., so hiking was no longer a possibility, and probably not sailing either. It was all very mysterious. I was excited and intrigued. I noticed that the glorious Italian wine had affected me a little bit while we walked to the car. I was probably just as giddy as Paul was. As soon